are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. I am Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And today we are answering your Twitter questions. But before we do that, Landon, how you doing today, sir?
Doing good. I didn't have to dig myself out of snow yet. It looks like the winter storms are going to descend on Dallas this weekend. So I hope everyone is staying safe in Texas and they got everything they need. Marcus is probably the better person to discuss for winter preparedness than I am, but hopefully everyone comes out okay. I know that I'm going to be chilly when it drops all the way down to the high 40s here in Los Angeles. Marcus loves it when I bring up the weather and how nice it is here. He loves it.
I haven't seen the sun in years, it feels like. So, all right. Busy day today, later across the NFL. Tom Brady retired. Mm-hmm. The Senior Bowl practices are going on as we speak. But we got Twitter questions to get to. If you are curious about the Senior Bowl, Landon and I will start kind of recapping things tomorrow. Tuesday is always kind of a light practice anyways. It's like an hour and a half of stretching, 5 minutes of drills. We don't need to talk about a lot of that stuff.
It's
right?
more instructional on how to practice, right? Like I think they get everything up, setting up the structure for what practice is going to look like the rest of the week. So there is never a ton to talk about. On Tuesday, on Monday you have weigh-ins. On Tuesday there's like almost nothing, and then suddenly Wednesday they open up the floodgates on you.
Exactly. But we'll talk about some Senior Bowl stuff tomorrow. We got the tape, and we're gonna watch it and see if there's anything noticeable. But let's get to your questions. This first one's a really good question from this handsome guy named @Marcus_Mosher, Landon. I've got a question for you. What type of tight ends do we think the Cowboys are going to be looking for this offseason? Because I cannot figure this out. I started watching tight ends last night, and they come in all shapes and sizes now. I was watching an Iowa State tight end that's 6'6.5", 260 pounds. I was watching a tight end from Coastal Carolina, Isaiah Likely, that's 6'3", 240. I was watching a tight end from Colorado State that was 6'2.5", 229. What do you think the Cowboys are going to be interested in this offseason?
It's a really good question. I mean, I like Likely a lot, by the way. I watched a little bit of him, and he's a lot of fun. I don't know if the Cowboys are interested in somebody who played with Coastal Carolina. I mean, they don't normally draft those kind of guys, but I think they should be interested in, right?
It's just I don't know what style of tight end they really like.
That's a really good. It is a good question. I mean, like you kind of look back at what McCarthy has preferred at different points. He has liked a little bit of that kind of move tight end, but you also see him. Way back in the day with guys like Jermichael Finley and that are full size tight ends. Obviously, the Cowboys over the years have preferred kind of mostly that full size kind of online wide type, kind of in the 6'4" to 6'6" range, anywhere from 245 to 265. I mean, I think that's kind of the physical prototype of what the Cowboys have liked previously. But I mean, again, the Cowboys have not necessarily been in the tight end market since McCarthy has been part of the coaching staff. So it is interesting to see if that kind of changes the prototype a little bit. And if they do kind of look more towards, I mean, I think that they should consider looking, more towards a kind of a use check guy, a guy that you can use as a move tight end, as a fullback, as an F, as a, maybe he can take some carries, he can line up on the end of the line of scrimmage if you need him to. I just think that, and it'll be interesting to see, like, how much they would use that in conjunction with someone like Seo Olanolua, right, as fullback, right? So I think it is an interesting question. It's one of the things that I'm going to be keeping my eyes open for when we start hearing the whispers of the names that they're talking to, because I do think it's something that has been kind of standardized one way, but we haven't really seen that changing of the guard now that McCarthy's in here, and if that changes the prototype at all.
Now, if you look back at like the tight ends that they've acquired, most of those guys are like 6'4.5" to 6'6", 247 pounds that have a little bit of quickness and a little bit of athleticism. But I don't know, because they like Kyle Pitts last year, and Kyle Pitts was basically a wide receiver, right? We like Tommy Tremble, who is kind of that huge check player. Sean McEwen is more in line of the Dalton Schultz type of guy. Yep. But do they want a 6'6", 260-pound tight end that can play in line? I honestly have no idea. That's something that I think we need to figure out, because I think it's going to be important going forward, because listen, if Dalton Schultz leaves, Blake Jarwin hasn't been able to stay healthy, Sean McEwen's an undrafted free agent, tight end's a need for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. If they don't re-sign Schultz, then I mean, you have to think that they're acquiring a tight end one way or another. I mean, you just can't rely on what you currently have on your roster to be enough to be a tight end one, even cobbled together in some sort of shared usage situation.
Or maybe the tight end is just going to be devalued in this offense, right? Like we saw them last year use Connor McGovern and Terrence Steele as fullbacks. Maybe they just kind of, whenever they need that inline blocker, they're just going to use an extra offensive lineman and more receivers. I don't know. I honestly don't know. That's one of the things I'm curious to see what happens.
If that's the case, they need to get a lot more wide receivers. I mean, that's, they're definitely going to be in the market for at least one tight end and one wide receiver, if not no tight ends and 2 or 3 receivers, right? I think either way, they're short on the number of, kind of that rotating 11th player.
Yep.
And see where they go. It'll be interesting.
The Cowboys were one of the highest percentage teams in the league with 11 personnel last year. I mean, going into this year, you have Amari Cooper under contract as of now. You've got CeeDee Lamb. You've got Simi Fehoko. And that's about it, right? Like, I mean, the cupboard's pretty bare at wide receiver in terms of numbers right now.
Yeah, is Malik Turner a free agent?
Free agent. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, they've got a lot of
Noah Brown's a free agent.
Players. Yeah, they got a lot of skill position players that they're going to need to kind of account for, regardless of whether they get a tight end or not.
All right, let's keep getting to your questions. But before we do that, we wanted to tell you guys about Bet Online. There might be less football being played, but betonline.net has way more odds and info this playoff season. From scores, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline is the #1 spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And it's not just football. BetOnline.net's basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC odds coverage is the best in the business. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your #1 online wagering destination. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, this question from Robbie Lanham. Do you think the Cowboys should consider being more aggressive like the Rams, making bold signing and draft day trades, perhaps mortgaging their future to go all in? He can't deny that the big 3 moves that the Rams made this offseason at quarterback, wide receiver, and pass rusher are the reason why they're in the Super Bowl. So would you like to see the Cowboys kind of go all in and be more aggressive this offseason?
I think it's tougher to do it this year. I'd like to see them maybe make 1 or 2 more of these moves, but I don't know that I necessarily want them to go all in the way the Rams do. Simply because, I mean, like we said yesterday, they are one Jaquisti Tartt caught interception away from being really screwed this offseason, So, and without a Super Bowl title. I think that to a large degree, the idea that the salary cap is a myth, still holds true. I mean, the Saints themselves are proving almost single-handedly that you can kind of do this sort of cap room gymnastics perpetually almost. But I do think that there is it becomes a lot more difficult when you've signed a quarterback to a long-term contract and who's being paid the way Dak is. And that's not to say that we shouldn't be paying Dak. It's just that the reality of is that you don't have the same kind of flexibility. And the way to make it work is to kind of hit on your draft picks and make sure that you are drafting well. And because the draft is such a crapshoot, you really need to hold on to all those picks. So I understand the thought process here. I'm not opposed to making a move here or there that are specific, and I think that it can help maybe improve the team for more than just 1 year. Like if you could trade for someone like, I mean, not Odell Beckham Jr., but I mean, if you could trade for Von Miller and know that you could get multiple years of Von Miller, that's a trade that I would be interested in. But I think what I would like to avoid is kind of spending high picks on rentals, despite the fact that I understand the logic there and that it can make sense, like sending high picks on rental and then flipping it for a comp pick, and you get kind of something out of that. I think that that's a process that can work. I just don't know that I would use it as regularly as it seems the Rams do. They don't really have a middle ground between like drafted players and guys that they're trading draft picks for. Frankly.
Where I would like to see the Cowboys be more aggressive is in the in-season player trades, like for day 3 picks. Like, for example,
absolutely,
the Chiefs going out and getting Melvin Ingram for a 6th-round pick was an absolute steal. And yes, I know they're not in the Super Bowl, but Ingram was awesome for them this year. They might not be in the championship game if it wasn't for Ingram, because he was phenomenal against the Bills. The Cowboys have actually had a lot of success with this, like in recent years, like the Robert Quinn trade. They traded, was it a 6th-round pick for Robert Quinn? He had 11.5 sacks. Now that was more of a salary cap dump, right? And the Cowboys absorbed that, but that move obviously worked. Michael Bennett, even though Michael Bennett wasn't here for very long, he was worth a 6th-round pick. Like, he was good when he played. Even going back to the Bryce Butler move, when the Cowboys traded, I think it was a 6th-round pick for Bryce Butler. That panned out too. Like, Butler was an NFL receiver that you got for a pick that probably doesn't matter. Those are the kind of trades I wish the Cowboys would exploit more often.
Yeah, I mean, those kind of like lower round flips of picks that I mean, those lower round picks don't usually count for very much.
Yeah.
So bring on more of those, like flipping low round picks for vets that are coming in on rentals. I'm okay with those. The question, the problem I have is when you're trading top 100 picks for guys. I think that's a little bit. I think that people forget that you're also trading away opportunity cost when you do that, right? The opportunity to have a player at that low salary when you trade away that pick is something that is a valuable thing, especially again when you have a quarterback on a long-term contract.
It depends on the player for me. Like, if you're getting a young guy, like the Rams did it with Jalen Ramsey, right? Ramsey was like 23, 24 when they traded away a 1st-round pick. That makes a lot more sense. But when you're doing it for guys that are at the end of their career, that's where it gets a little dicey, right? I would like to see the Cowboys do more 1-year deals in free agency with big-time players. Like, example, last year, Jadeveon Clowney went for 1 year, like $8 million in free agency. If something like that were available for the Cowboys and you can rent basically a Pro Bowl player for a year, I would be all in favor of that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that there are certain scenarios that I wish the Cowboys were a little bit more open to. But I mean, it's not like I'm not at the point where I'm wanting to completely have them shift gears and
no, but
overall
there should be a
acquiring
balance,
talent.
right?
But there should be there should be a little bit more aggression, but not like a complete changing of process here.
And I think like the Bengals had a good example of this. Like, for decades, Landon, the Bengals were a team that just did not spend money in free agency at all. They were a draft and develop team. They go out this offseason and they sign a bunch of free agents, right? Trey Hendrickson, Awuzie, Mike Hilton. And it made a big difference, right? It's probably the reason why they're in the Super Bowl right now with Joe Burrow, right? Like, I wish the Cowboys would be a little bit more aggressive like that. Just find 1 or 2 high-level players that can win you playoff games. That's all.
I agree. I certainly think that would help.
All right, next question. This one's from Ron. Can you list the top 5 quarterbacks of the NFC if Aaron Rodgers leaves via trade?
The top 5 quarterbacks left in. So let's say Aaron Rodgers is gone. Tom Brady's now retired officially.
We can probably name the 5. It's Russell Wilson.
Probably.
Dak.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Kyler Murray.
Mm-hmm. Matt Stafford.
Right?
Yeah.
Matt Stafford. Kirk Cousins. Matt Ryan.
Maybe. Yeah, I guess so. Jeez. Yeah, I mean,
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Jimmy's gonna be in the conversation eventually.
I mean, that's where we're at. Like, that 5th or 6th quarterback is like somewhere between Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
It's a weird year for the NFC, man.
It's a really, really weird year. Yeah.
That's why I said the Cowboys.
Cowboys got to find a way to take advantage of this.
Yeah,
like
that's why I think this is the year they kind of probably should try to load up, right? Like
maybe.
Especially if Rodgers leaves, it's going to be the easiest in terms of quarterback matchups that you're going to have for a long time.
Yep.
All right, let's get to some more questions. A lot of draft questions out there, and yes, I promise you we'll get to some draft stuff.
I know you guys are ready.
Yeah,
I know.
This is a good question from Frank though. This is draft related, but you'll see where we're going. With draft season upon us, would radar charts be less terrible if category spacing was proportional to relative value? So if you don't know what he's talking about, one of my favorite things to do after the NFL Combine is go to Mock Draftable, one of my favorite websites, and look at the spider charts that they have. And it's really fun because you can see what guys are, how they compare to their peers at the positions, but they are kind of a mess when it comes to messing with your eyes. How would be the best way to fix that?
Well, the radar chart is not a really good, plotting of those data points, right? Because I mean, kind of what the questioner is saying, right, is that it purports that all the data points are of equal value, right? And that there's relative to their percentiles of the position that's being measured. Like for instance,
height, weight,
the way it measures it, right, is it has a circle. And then your filling of the circle is based on where your specific stat rates in the larger percentage of that position, right? So, but that's not like always proportional to value. I mean, meaning the fact that you're in the 95th percentile for arm length when you're a running back is not useful. It's not, and it's plotted similarly to being in the 98th percentile for 3-cone. It's like that. Those are not equally valued traits for a running back. So I guess to answer the question, I think it would be more valuable if it was proportionally portioned out on the radius, but I don't really even know how to do that, right? Because I don't think it's even as straightforward as you doing it by a position, because I think each position has, it goes back to players win the way they win, right? It's not even by position. So you may have a speed tight end who's, 40 times really important, but his bench press is not, right? And you may have a blocking tight end who's, I'm just kind of making these up.
There's an example. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, what we're talking about, right?
So those numbers right now that we're seeing here, those are the percentiles of where that player ranked in each one of those categories relative to the rest of the people in his position group. And the problem here is that, again, let's say this is I can't, like a quarterback, right? None of these numbers, the 72% broad jump gets the same, length out to the radius of the circle as hand size. And hand size may be more important to an evaluation of a quarterback than whether they broad jump well or not. So the issue is that they all kind of look the same. I do agree that I think that there is value in trying to making it proportional to the skill set that's required for that position, but I don't know that that's an easy thing to create or to break out like that.
That's why there's better tools out there than spider charts and radar charts for prospects, right? That's why we love the relative athletic score from Math Bomb, which is basically shows you how well does all those things together make for one composite score. How does that compare to his peers? I mean, listen, I love Mock Draftable. I love these charts, but they're not that great of a tool, right?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the radius, unless you're comparing apples to apples, then it is helpful. If you're comparing two players athletically, then there is some helpfulness there. But as far as just kind of looking at that chart by itself and then trying to glean something from it, there's not a ton that you can really.
Don't think that won't stop me though from posting these after the combine. I'm going to be posting as many of these as to confirm to confirm my priors. So there you go.
Yes, of course. Yeah, you got to confirm those priors. But again, the point is that it's helpful in some ways, but it certainly isn't the end all be all in comparisons of athletics.
Right. Exactly. Again, it's a tool to use. It's not anything that's going to say whether a prospect is good or bad, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
all right. Let's take one more quick break to tell you guys about Rock Auto. We haven't heard from Rock Auto in a while, so this is great. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock up on all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at your home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more on the same exact parts that your local car dealership will have? Go to rockauto.com right now and type in Locked On so they know that we sent you. They have an amazing selection of reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com today. We love Rock Auto.
Yeah.
All right, Landon, next question from Will. Do you think Reggie Robinson will have any shot to contribute next season, or is he going to get lost in the shuffle with so many cornerbacks on the roster?
Not gonna lie, forgot that Reggie Robinson was on the team.
We're going into year 3 now, right?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, he's already in a kind of a tough spot. He was drafted by a previous regime. Well, I mean, drafted by a previous defensive coordinator.
Coaching staff.
There is. I mean, there's a glut of people at the position. There's a lot of backup right now.
Well, let's talk about it. So you got Trevon Diggs, Anthony
Yep.
Brown, and Jordan Lewis.
Yep.
Those are your top 3 snap getters, all coming back, we think, in 2022. You have Kelvin Joseph, probably going to push the start this year, right?
Yep.
You've got Nashawn Wright, who played a bunch on special teams. And then you've got some other guys down the roster, including Reggie Robinson. It's going to be tough.
It is. It's going to be an uphill battle. There's a very good chance that there is a chance that he had the opportunity to kind of take the offseason and really develop and kind of improve his game, and maybe that helps with the push. But the problem is that, again, it's not even just that these guys got drafted by this coaching staff. It's that 2 of them were drafted in higher slots than Reggie Robinson. So they have more invested in those guys as well. So he's going to have to be really special. I think it's going to be it's a very difficult uphill climb for him, to be honest.
Now, if the Cowboys really like Reggie Robinson, what I could see them doing is trading one of Brown or Jordan Lewis to save a little bit of cap, maybe pick up a 6th or 7th round pick, kind of opening the door for a competition between, Nashawn Wright and Reggie Robinson for that last cornerback spot. But even then, I don't necessarily see that happening either. Robinson's probably going to get lost in the shuffle here. And it's unfortunate because I think he's pretty talented.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just to say if there isn't like a situation where, we draft another cornerback, which certainly could happen, or signs. Yeah, there's the cornerback's a spot where the Cowboys have a lot of options right now, and they're lucky there. But that's not so lucky for Reggie Robinson.
Yeah, I agree. All right, next question. This one from Eli. Do you think there's a possibility that Micah Parsons experiences a drop in production similar to Leighton Vander Esch or Jalen Smith after their first big year?
Yeah, absolutely. It's possible. I mean, we certainly weren't anticipating that happening for Leighton Vander Esch or Jalen Smith necessarily. So, I mean,
although I will say Vander Esch's was a lot of injury stuff, right? He had the neck surgery and the back issue. He had some stuff going on. I don't know about Jalen though. Jalen played really well in 2018. And I don't think he got hurt. He just did not play well.
I think he just got tired. I think his body was just exhausted. I mean, look, it took everything he had to get back to playing football, even at that level for 1 year. And I think his body just couldn't maintain that and just started deteriorating as he went. So for Parsons, I mean, the reason I'm a little bit less worried about it there is because he has such versatility, right? That they can use him in so many different ways, like as a pass rusher, if they need to. He has options to kind of make him and keep him relative. And we still have not seen him fully kind of deployed as a pass rusher yet. So, I think that there is certainly a possibility, and Cowboys fans should be like, prepared for that reality. But I don't anticipate it. I don't expect it. Simply because of what we just talked about. I think there's a lot more elements to Parsons' games that he can exploit to kind of keep him a very relevant piece of this defense.
I agree. He's also just so much more athletic, right?
He's way more talented too.
He's way more talented. He's with the same defensive coordinator for another year, and that'll really, really help. I think there's a chance like the sack production goes down and he doesn't have the same pass, the pressure rates and all that stuff. I don't see him going from a all-pro player down to, hey, do we need to get this guy off the field? Kind of the way we had conversations about Van Der Esch and Jalen in 2019. I don't see that happening.
Yeah. I mean, I just think he came out of the season clean, no injuries. Again, he's a generational talent. I mean, he isn't just a very good linebacker who came out. Like, I think he's a different kind of player.
I think he'll be okay. Last question. This one from Wingspan Whisper. He wants to know, outside of the offensive line, is there another positional coach the Cowboys should be looking to move on from this offseason? None popped to, come to the front of my mind right now. I think Philbin is the one that I think the Cowboys could upgrade on if the right guy was available. Mike Munchak. Everybody else I think is fine.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, you could say wide receivers coach. I'd like to see kind of, but I mean, honestly, I think that even the down roster guys did really well. So maybe that's not a spot.
Wilson looked improved. Malik Turner looked okay.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, everyone else seems to play a little bit above what they were supposed to. So maybe offensive line's really the spot that you really only look at.
If Joe Witt leaves to be the defensive coordinator somewhere, I saw he's had 4 different interviews. You interested in bringing in Gus Bradley to be your secondary coach?
Is Gus Bradley a secondary guy? I thought he was a defensive line guy.
Defensive line. Well, I thought he did a little bit of everything, right?
Did he? Yeah, I mean, he's a name. I think it's more important that they make sure that Al Harris stays as the cornerback coach. That's really where I'm concerned. I feel like he did a really fantastic job this year with specifically Diggs and some of those guys. So I really don't want to lose Joe Witt. I'm really, really hoping that he doesn't go. I'm hoping that he stays with the chance that maybe someday he will end up the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. I like Joe Witt a lot, so I'm hoping that he doesn't go. But yeah, I mean, Bradley's obviously a very experienced guy who has, skins on the wall everywhere. And even if he wasn't a defensive line coach at one point, he's been a defensive coordinator, so he could certainly do that job.
I'm looking at it now. Bradley was a linebacker coach from 2006 to 2008 in Tampa. Defensive coordinator in Seattle from 2009 to 2012. Head coach with Jacksonville 2013 to 2016. Defensive coordinator with the Chargers and the Raiders since 2017. So,
yeah. So you
just put him anywhere. He's good, right?
Yeah, I would assume so too.
Something interesting to keep an eye on because he is good friends with Dan Quinn. Wouldn't shock me. So. All right, that is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Tomorrow, we'll be back with some Senior Bowl coverage, so make sure you guys are getting ready for that. You can download the show wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow Landon at McCoolBCB, and I'm at Marcus_Mosier, and we'll see you next time.